I don't know, Neda, what your procedure is. Some time back, you said that there will be reading of that.
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
that is the case, then how would you like to go through the preface? Has there been a reading of that and then allowing me to comment? Or what do you want me to do?
Sure. Well, we didn't read the preface. We read the chapter. We began with chapter 1. But because you just mentioned it, I think it's a great idea if you could touch on the preface for us.
Does everyone understand that why this book was written at this time? Which, in fact, what is posing the center of it is the growth of the Baha'i faith. And it offers various metaphors for that discussion. Because I think some people have been very supportive of that, with the thinking that we are not as growing as we should be. And some people have not been, have reacted to that. But my sense comes throughout this book that, in fact, we have not grown as fast and as rapidly and as effectively as this faith of such stature with so many principles and potentialities demands. Now, I'm wondering if there has been even a little bit of discussion on that.
Well, we did do some discussion, and we touched upon how you are using metaphors and you are using like the charts with regards to the growth. So we did discuss a little bit of that while we were reading the nature of growth, the first chapter, correct? But I think
Okay,
if you could, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, but I think if you could, like you just said, like, we are growing at a much slower rate, you know,
Yes.
and when the manifestations of God have come down, there is this whole process, and there
Mhm.
is there is like sometimes I even question, we only have, so many million where there's just so many billion of these other faiths. So for
Mhm.
you to touch upon that, because I think it's important, because I think this is exactly what Shoghi Effendi wants us to do. That's why he tells us to read, those three main books, the
Yeah.
Kitab-e-Iran, Book of Certitude, the Dawnbreakers, and the Hidden Words, so that we can be deepened, so that we can very easily, well, when we do read, to try to teach our beautiful faith. And Derek has a question, so maybe we can go to Derek. Derek, please.
I
Unmute
understand what
yourself,
you're
Derek.
saying, but when you think about that, we're not even 200 years old, and we're probably more more spread out and than say the other religions were at that time. Don't you think that we are growing? I mean, maybe not as fast as we should be growing, but considering we are growing, say, at a rapid rate, or am I misreading that?
Well, uh, it depends on how you look at it. In my estimation, we are for the source of principles and the inspiration and the holy writings that are provided. The expectation could be far more rapidly. That's my view. I'm not saying that I'm correct or not correct, and it is my view that we should be growing a lot faster. And hence, the metaphors that are given in this book have been used to perhaps explain why we are not as growing as fast as one would anticipate. Because after all, this faith of Baha'u'llah provides so much that is essential for our times. So I do wonder if any of those metaphors make sense to anyone.
Anyone, please feel free to use your raise your hand feature or unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm not sure how to do the raise hands, but anyway, I just wanted to comment, and I appreciate this class very much. Um, and the metaphor too, how growth, the dynamics of growth and how, anyway, I was thinking about the study circles and the institute process and um, how our sincere, pure-hearted love and unity are critical to them being effective in relation to how you wrote in the book and pointed that out. I thought it was, and I was thinking of, the trees and the flowers and how they require certain nutrients for growth. And so does our study circles. It's not a check, check, check. It's a deep connection to the divine and each other. And then the other thing I was going to say about the slowness, yes, I have read, I can't remember the source, that Abdu'l-Baha himself was disappointed when he came at how we were. But I just think of materialism as that cancer and enervates us. It's just such a incredible distraction. And how dangerous and destructive it is, but how it, even as Baha'is, we're just consumed in this materialism, especially if we live in a materially developed country. So that in itself, I think, to really immerse myself, I came away from that realizing I really need to immerse myself much more to see through the eyes of the divine, of the blessed beauty, rather than all that's around me, which is a total, darkness, really, in comparison. Anyway, thank you for having the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much for your comments. But I'm wondering, I'll tell you where my mind is going right now. There are several metaphors given here in this book. One of them is on the cover of the book, and that is the butterfly and the concept behind the butterfly, and when it becomes dynamic. And the other concept, one of the concepts that comes to my mind, because I didn't know how the last session was. And by the way, I apologize for not being there. It was not willful. It was that something came up at that last moment with a neighbor who needed help. Anyway, I apologize for that. But anyway, one is a butterfly and one is an image of crystallization. And I don't know if one offhand what chapter that is. There are these two metaphors, as well as several other metaphors, that have a lot of insight that, in my way of thinking, I'm just saying my way of thinking, have a lot to do with dynamic growth of any system. I don't know whether this makes sense to anyone here.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that you did say, Dr. Khodadad, in the book.
Just call me Jena.
Okay, Shanajin, with regards to Shoghi Effendi, because I think this requires a transformation of every individual. It has to do with how we're going to change our inner life and our character. And I think, and that's why I always open, and I'm starting to do this. I always say everybody that's here is practicing humility. And that's very important because first, Baha'u'llah created all of us noble, and to immediately have that one virtue of saying, you know what, maybe I don't know and I possibly will learn something. So I'm going to attend this class or any class or even feast, just anything that you do in anything, any venue. So if we do this and we make this choice and we do change this character within ourselves individually, we can continue. And I think this is the most fundamental thing of how we can, I guess if I want to say this, to really teach more rapidly, or make sure that that's in our, because we have to change our life. It's not just, okay, I get up, I go to work and that's it. No, I get up. What am I going to do today? Who am I going to teach? It all depends on your mindset, right? Also, and sometimes it's accidental. It could be a conversation and then you're like, oh, this is Baha'u'llah put me this person in my path so I can answer this question, right? But I think it all has to come to it's our character and it's our life. It's our decision. We have to make that choice. We have to make that change. We just have to. I just think we just have to.
Thank you, thank you. That's a very, very valuable insight, transformation, and what we have to do. And there is on page 110 of this book, and actually right now, I wrote this some time ago, I'm trying to recall, there is an image, there are two diagrams of crystallization. And
I'm holding it up.
thank you. And in my view, that underlies what the Baha'i community, my understanding, is trying to achieve worldwide, formation of crystals. And once those crystals form, then the entire community can become a new entity. Because in process of crystallization, scientific process of crystallization, certain nuclei aggregates of crystal form, and then those rapidly go through process of crystallization, and then a crystal forms. Now, why am I using the term crystal? Because a crystal symbolizes purity. That is when purity takes place. So could that possibly symbolize that when we reach that stage, when our communities or ourselves are at that level of forming that crystal, then it is that things can start to happen. This is my thinking. I don't know if it jives with anything anyone is thinking of or would like to comment, because those beautiful pictures of crystals, that is the only form in that shape and form when there is purity, and purity in our faith requires purpose and purity, so many things, many of which are in place. But it's wonderful to keep that image in mind because of formation of that crystal. Is that we are what the Baha'i world is working towards? Not just numbers alone. Of course, numbers are important because each point becomes a center of crystallization. Numbers are important, but more important is how these crystals connect with one another and form a whole new entity. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly or if that makes sense. You see, my background is science. My background has something to do with crystallization. It has to do with various aspects of scientific thinking. So I think in those terms, but maybe I'm going far off from that. Science and religion, to me, means incorporation of those metaphors and mode of thinking in growth of religion, and in this case, in growth of Baha'i faith, which has those ingredients for that ultimate purity. So the question is, once we feel that we reach that stage, whether at the local level or national level or at the world level, then we have truly formed a crystal that is coherent and has purity. Is that when things magically, I don't like to use magically, providentially begin to form? So my question to all those in this session, and I want to thank you for your entrance, for being in this session. What are your thoughts on that metaphor? Is it making sense to any of you? Or is it just, am I going way off into pure science?
Yes, it makes sense, perfect sense. So,
I don't think you can go wrong when you join religion and science, as Baha'u'llah said.
Right. You know, every metaphor that you have used, Jena, in this book, it's so enlightening and it works, at least for me. And we had for some years collectively, we had this question that why the faith does not grow accordingly to our expectation. This message is so lofty. What part of it humanity doesn't get? And then when for the first time, some years ago, I read this book, it was wonderful because you explained the process of growth itself. And you brought, indeed, for every metaphor that you picked up two metaphors, the butterfly and, but every metaphor works. And it's so descriptive and explaining the process of growth. And with beautiful quotes that you have brought from the holy writings and messages, you connect this so coherently that your coherent and brilliant mind amazes me. And it's just beautiful. And I was just thanking dear Nida that how thankful I am that she has created this space for you to accompanying us in studying this book.
We are accompanying actually each other because I want to learn from each one of you. Each one of you. So what about the butterfly is intriguing to you or to anyone? Because the butterfly.
Go ahead. Yeah, Teresa's about to say something. Please, Teresa. Sorry.
Butterflies represent metamorphosis from a caterpillar to a butterfly, and that maturation takes time. Also, when you see the butterfly fully maturated, then what happens is you see its full beauty and its ability to transverse its limitations from just the local spot as a caterpillar with many legs to a butterfly that has illimitable space. So we are physical beings having a spiritual transformation. And as we grow towards that, we will find that these potential to teach and to live the life as Baha'is will manifest naturally in and of itself. That's
So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So does a butterfly, before it becomes a butterfly, it goes through stages, each one of which has a name, a stage, until it becomes a butterfly. Then it's at that stage that it has potency. It can bring about, shows transformation. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to build on that?
I know Christine said something here in the comments. She said, I think it's been very helpful to think of growth as it occurs in the natural world, which follows a slower path and then takes off. We tend to think of growth as always linear and then lose patience.
Mm-hmm. Christine, can you tell us more about that?
Unmute.
Yeah, thank you for leading this. I think, from your beginning, you do have many examples of growth in the natural world and in biology, and then you use the butterfly analogy. And I think that to show these many different ways from the natural world helps us to understand that, there's many different ways that growth can take off, and therefore we tend to think that growth is just linear, step by step, and we lose patience if it doesn't happen in that singular way. And so it's really important to see these examples that you're giving us so that we don't lose patience and understand that it can be different than what we expect.
But this metaphor of the butterfly, becoming a butterfly, from a pupa on through various stages, there's so much potency in there. There's so much transformation. There's so much that takes place in that. Could that speak to us?
Yes.
Yes.
I have Seraphim and Derek. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Hello, yes, I just received the book in the mail, so I haven't had time to read it. It looks really good. I can't wait to dive into it. And I'm sure that you cover this topic in the book about the butterfly, but I'll just mention it in case you don't. And that is that when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, it turns into this gooey substance, and it looks like it's a complete chaotic mess, kind of like our world looks today. But what begins to form within the chrysalis in this gray goo are these what are called imaginal cells. And as the imaginal cells arise, from these imaginal cells is born the structure of the coming beautiful butterfly. And I just think it's a perfect analogy that you bring up in your book, because those imaginal cells in our world are the people of the Baha'i faith and other conscientious people of goodwill who are forming these imaginal cells, even in the midst of the gray goo. So it's a beautiful image, and I thank you for it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Derek, please.
Uh,
Thank you, Seraphim.
Yes, I wanted to, you use the term when you start, as you're talking about crystallization, you also use the term nucleation and nuclei. And since we are now using the term nuclei, would you say that we're talking about crystallization in that sense? And then the other thing is, as far to me as growth goes, maybe there are, when you say though that there are places that are experiencing rapid growth, maybe as a whole we're not experiencing rapid growth, but there are places in the world that are experiencing rapid growth.
Yeah. So are you saying that there are places in the world where these nuclei are forming right now?
Yeah, yes, and places, because to me, the fact that we're building, like we're building like local houses of worship in places,
Yes.
to me that says that those areas are growing.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Beautifully said. Yes. It's happening all over the world, in certain places more advanced than other places. Yeah.
Seraphim, did you have something to add?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay.
There were other metaphors there. I have to admit to you that since I wrote this book, I have read it from time to time, reflected on the metaphors and on the images from time to time. But in most recent times, except for the upcoming of these sessions, which due to kindness and grace of Neda and the rest of you, have resurrected these thoughts in me. And I looked at that very briefly, and I looked at my diagrams, and I thought to myself, how could I have said these things differently? And I'm sure that if I had given it more reflection, it probably would have taken this to a higher dimension, I hope, not to a different dimension. I think the basic premise, I'm still with that, but maybe to higher dimension. But this image of crystallization on page 110 continues to tantalize me, because as a scientist and as having worked on biological systems, and in particular on membranes and various other questions of science in biology, this image constantly comes to my mind. And now my question is, I asked the question, as a Baha'i community, you can say local, national, or international, Do we have far to go before we reach that level of crystallization, whereby the outcome of that would be formation of a crystal? And a crystal, in scientific terms, is an entity which has organization and is totally pure. Or do we have to strive for that? Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not implying that our communities are not pure. In fact, they are, but there are levels of which we can reach. And those levels are given, not the levels, but the thinking behind that are given in the writings of Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha. And do we still have to strive to get to that point? Or is this something we have reached at a certain level? And when we reach that point, is that when we can expect more rapid growth?
Yeah, I think it all also has to do with preparation, right? There has to be some form of preparation even within the communities, and that's why I really do appreciate and I need to do more of the studying of the letters from the Universal House of Justice, because of course they get together, they say their prayer, and Baha'u'llah is being funneled through them for us to receive the guidance. And I think if we have the preparation and everyone is doing it, I think that's important, because then we're all on the same page, right? Not that we're not right now, but there's maybe some people in communities who haven't gone through Ruhi classes, or some people in communities who haven't done study circles. So there's many things, like you say with one of your metaphors about the sun and the nutrients. So the same thing, it's like these are all ingredients, right? This is a recipe. We all need to have everything intact so that we can create this magnificent end result of what it is within our communities to teach the faith, right? So I think preparation is key. And just to go back to what I said, it's really our character, and that's one of the things I remember Hooper Dunbar would say, that just read a page a day. When we pray, we're asking something of Baha'u'llah. When we read the writings, Baha'u'llah is telling us what to do. And he tells us with 3 words, right? And they are ponder, consider, reflect. Those are all intentional words that Baha'u'llah uses for us. And they're very important. And I've mentioned this even through our Dawnbreakers classes, and everybody who's here knows. But it's really ponder, consider, reflect. He's telling us what to do. And when we all do these things, I think it's very important that we are preparing ourselves and help building our characters, reading a page a day to be mindful of what they went through. And this is something that Shoghi Effendi says when he tells us to read the Dawnbreakers. Be very mindful of everything that they didn't have. And like, I forgot who it was that mentioned it. I think it was Diana, where we have all these material distractions that is just bombarding our path, our journey of this dynamic of growth, of teaching, right? So that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much.
John, I have a question. Can we look at crystallization as, I might be quite way out, as the fruit of revelation? And in that process of thinking, so it takes a while. So whatever we do is the process of formation of that end result. And indeed, we are in the formative age. How do you relate that crystallization with the ages, or related with does it happen? Do we see it? Should we expect it in the golden age? Anyway.
That's a good question. It's a hard one to answer, but I think that crystallization in all ages, for example, if we think about that right now, when we feel that we have reached a level where the writings and the teachings have produced the result in the individual, a change of character, a transformation of character, and that has also resulted in change, in transformation of community. I view that as crystallization. But I guess you can take that idea at different levels and discuss it extensively. The concept of crystallization is the one I introduced. I don't even know if it is in Baha'i writings, but why did I come up with that concept? Because of my field. You have my field. It just all of a sudden connected to a thought that is important in my field of science, and it made a lot of sense because crystals have purity, crystals have structure, crystals have the units, those small units have cohesiveness for each other. So I thought of that example. It is possible that some of you have better example, and I would love to hear that.
Could I speak a little? I'm not realizing how, for some reason, with the updates on Zoom technology, they're raising the hand. So I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm just thinking, I love the example of the crystal and the purity factor, necessity. I'm also thinking of an experience that I had personally about, we had a project institute that really had grown. It had begun very small, and over years it grew considerably. And the counselor met with us and said, "Oh, you have an orchard growing here," and it was because it was at all levels. Anyway, it was pretty wonderful. But then, not so much after that, a crisis happened that while the relationships stayed, close, the project disappeared, basically stopped, fizzled out. We kept trying to keep it going, fizzled out after this crisis. Anyway, I was thinking of the need for sustainability and thinking of an orchard, together with the crystal maybe, or something complementing that concept, that it has different needs once the orchard gets, developed, but it still requires, it needs to be sustained. And anyway, that was just a thought I had. I don't know that we ever can stop. It's just a different, anyway.
That's a beautiful term you introduced, sustainability, which means, could you tell us more about that?
Well, I'm just thinking really about, from my own very humble experiences, but as a Baha'i for many years and pioneer and this and that, but involved in the institute process, how just thinking of what the counselor said about an orchard that, and I love gardening and all that, how much it continues to take there's a commitment. It's a long-term commitment, whatever it is we're doing. And I'm thinking of where I live right now in the San Francisco Bay Area. There's a project that's been going on for about 10 years. And now we have even a regional educational center, about 80 youth and many families involved. Very few are Baha'is. I'm actually a witness to this. Our auxiliary board members on the team, but this team has sacrificed and dedicated themselves to this project over a long, and they continue to be dedicated and committed and sacrificed. So sustainability is a long, it could be decades perhaps involved in this project, so somebody needs to commit, a team needs to commit to whatever they're doing, right? No matter what it is for the faith, the feast, or especially the institute process, which is that. So anyway, that's one thought here.
What I would like to interject here, if I may, the institute process, if you're thinking of Ruhi, and that is really a magnificent program, but there are other ways of reflecting and deepening on Baha'i writings.
Of course.
So many different avenues.
of course.
So when you said, are you taking all of that into consideration, all modes of in-depth study of Baha'i writings?
Yes, because it's, as the Guardian said, it's our own inner life, that's everything, in our service. So I have to continue that personal for sustainability, continue to, do that work. And then together as a team, also in accompaniment, for community building these harmonious, loving, united communities that have prayers and lead to a local house of worship in time, and a Mashra Kalaskar and all that means. So I don't know. It's the daily reading. It's those following the prerequisites for spirituality that we're given, the daily reading and memorization and giving to the fund, all of it. So. Like you said, the hidden words. Yeah, anyway, I'll be quiet now. I appreciate I love the book, by the way, and I'm recommending it as well to a Baha'i women's study group that we do to study it as well. So.
The Baha'i
That
literature is so vast.
Mhm.
There's just so much there. And it becomes at times very difficult to pigeonhole it into one category because there is just an amazing vastness to the writings, sacred writings, the hidden words, the seven valleys, the writings of Abdul Baha, the writings of Baha'u'llah, the writings of the Bab, and all that proceeded afterward. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm sure you all agree with that. Amazing.
There are
absolutely.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Manisha, please.
There are two beautiful quotes you have used the bottom of page 108, and then both from Shoghi Effendi and 109, that they are, I haven't reached reading again to this part. We just finished two sections. And these two quotes, they tell us the gradual process of crystallization in the formative age. And that word gradual is just so important. And I love that. And that's exactly what you mentioned. It's happening now as in the process of happening, and it will. Yes, these two quotes are just perfect answers to what
Could you read those two quotes?
Sure. And 108, it says, Shoghi Effendi, the bottom of page 108, Shoghi Effendi in the World Order of Baha'u'llah foreshadows the crystallization of its institutions, the hallmark of the administrative system of Baha'i faith. Quote, the onrushing forces so miraculously released through the agency of two independent and swiftly successive manifestations are now under our very eyes, and through the care of the chosen stewards of a far-flung faith being gradually mustered and disciplined, they are slowly crystallizing into institutions that will come to be regarded as the hallmark and glory of the age we are called upon to establish and by our deeds immortalize.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, and then you continue with the other quote. It says, in reference to the formative age, Shoghi Effendi again evokes the image of crystallization. That quote, that formative period, which is to witness the gradual crystallization of those creative energies and the consequent emergence of that world order for which those forces were made to operate. Beautiful. Thank you.
And that quote in its entirety from Shoghi Effendi, I had put it in the chat So if you want it, it's something he wrote 91 years ago. So it's right there in the chat for the friends who want. Just go to the chat and hit on the 3 dots. But he does continue, if I may, Manisha June, because Jena didn't add this part in the book. But Shoghi Effendi continues after he talks about it's established and by our deeds immortalized. He continues and says, "For upon our present day efforts, and above all upon the extent to which we strive to remodel our lives." So we have to remodel our lives, right? After the pattern of sublime heroism associated with those gone before us. Again, why we do Baha'i Chronicles, why we study the Dawnbreakers, so that we are in that appreciative mode of what they've done for us, right? This is very important. To those gone before us must depend the efficacy of the instruments we now fashion, instruments that must erect the structure of that blissful commonwealth which must signalize the golden age of our faith. Like, amazing,
Beautiful.
amazing.
Thank you, Nadaju, for
Of
completing
course.
it.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
could we have more discussion on that? I would like to be enriched by some thoughts because it is such a significant passage.
And while the friends are thinking to comment, this was a letter that he wrote on February 8th, 1934, and it was printed. What he responded, and that's what Shoghi Effendi does, right? He responds, he writes these letters, and then they become a book. So this is from the dispensation of Baha'u'llah in the world order of Baha'u'llah, right? So this is also important. Yeah, please, I don't want to be the only one talking, but friends, please don't be shy. This is your opportunity. We always will not have Jena June with us. We're hoping she will. But while she's here, please make your comments, ask your questions.
Would you read that again?
Sure, sure. It goes,
You
the
can take it phrase
onrushing,
by phrase.
sure, sure. The onrushing forces so miraculously released through the agency of 2 independent and swiftly successive manifestations, so Bab and Baha'u'llah, are now under our very eyes, and through the care of the chosen stewards of a far-flung faith, being gradually mustered and disciplined. I'll stop there at that sentence because you said let's take it piece by piece.
Okay. The fact that there are 2 independent but swiftly succeeding manifestations is so unique in the entire world history.
Teresa, please.
My reflections on that, far flung. I often think about that because when you know the history of some of the hands of the causes, for example, they traveled extensively throughout the world, Knights of Baha'u'llah, and you see remnants that are growing regarding their love for Baha'u'llah and the Bab, and how it impacts us every single day. It is far flung, but far flung is also not something you see geographically, but far flung into the hearts of men. So I work with medical students, and I find that a lot of the teachings of the faith echo into what inspires them to serve humanity. So my language has changed. And some things I say, I realize are far flung. For example, I was panicking in the classroom one time because students were pretty much down on their ability to understand the complexity of the basic sciences that they had to master. And it set a very negative tone across the room. And I'm inwardly thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to say to them? And I said, but you're created noble. I was desperate. He says, you're created noble. Come on, we have to rise. And I said, oh, to myself. It just popped out. So the students kind of thought about that phrase and changed their tune, which was astounding to me because I realized it was a creative word that reached the hearts of men. So they moved on and I forgot about it. And this student from a different class who was never with me came by and asked me, what makes me tick? And I had no understanding of where he was coming from or why he was asking that question. And it dawned on me, it was a creative word. And it ruminated, it went far flung. And I think we're all doing it, but we don't realize our impact. That's all I wanted to share. I'll be quiet now.
I like that you said that we don't realize our impact because I've mentioned this before in other classes where when you mention the word Baha'i or you make any mention of the words of Baha'u'llah, not only are you planting the seed, and we have to do that. Sometimes we don't have the glory of seeing that person transform and turn into a Baha'i, but know for a certainty that any person who has become a Baha'i that you later maybe find out about, you have made that impact, you know? But that shouldn't actually be like a motivation in that sense, but don't let it stop you. You might not see it, but whatever you're teaching, Baha'u'llah knows what he's doing, right? So our job, like I always say, we carry part of Baha'u'llah's name when we say we're Baha'i, right? So when we do that, just know we're planting the seed, he's going to water it, and then somebody else will see the flower. But the most important person who does is Baha'u'llah. So beautiful. Jena, let me know, do you want me to read the next passage, the next sentence? Oh, okay, and you're on mute, by the way, but I read your lips. They are slowly crystallizing into institutions that will come to be regarded as the hallmark and glory of the age, and we are called upon to establish and by our deeds immortalize.
Here's the word crystallization again, applied to institutions. Can be applied to individuals, this is applied to institutions. Wow.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah.
For upon our present day efforts, and above all upon the extent to which we strive to remodel our lives after the pattern of sublime heroism associated with those gone before us, must depend the efficacy of the instruments we now fashion, instruments that must erect the structure of that blissful commonwealth which must signalize the golden age of our faith. Again, written 91 years ago by Shoghi Effendi. So friends, last week we completed chapter 1. We left off on a few pages before we were going to read chapter 2 today together. So let's go ahead and read chapter 2 together in 2 weeks. And maybe listening to Jena June today, maybe if you have a chance, go back and reread chapter 1, okay? Just some sections of it, and especially for those who didn't get a chance to get the book, maybe that's a good time to do your catch up. for you to immerse yourself and have this understanding so that we can read chapter 2 together with any questions that we have. One thing I did want to touch upon from chapter 1, because this was homework, and I just want to make sure the friends were able to read this. Remember, there's one section on page 33 where Jena writes about how growth takes place in 2 phases. Okay, I think if you didn't get a chance, reread that section because that's going to be very important. That's page 33. And then, of course, there's that diagram followed on page 35. But then there's this lovely quote on page 36 where it's a quote from Baha'u'llah from the book Gems of Divine Mysteries. Now, I really want you to not only read that, but maybe again, what Baha'u'llah says, consider, ponder, and reflect upon it because it's really, really beautiful. Okay. And then maybe if we have questions, we can come back to Jena because we only have 7 more minutes here for class, but I think that would be fabulous. And then we're going to read in 2 weeks when we get together, we'll read chapter 2 together. Jena, please.
Well, thank you very much. I think that I'll tell you, I've written this book some years ago, and going through these and the areas that the passages that you're highlighting, I need to add to this that I appreciate it greatly because they bring forth many thoughts of some years ago, which are still my thoughts, but have expanded over the course of the years. And I do appreciate that. So I'm so glad that we're doing it in this fashion.
Okay, good, good. It's a wonderful book. And of course, you know, every extraordinary writer, teacher is going to be their own critic, right? And they're always going to say, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. So we love that. So thank you. Yeah, we love this book. We really do. We're really excited. And I can say that for everybody. And I know some people were traveling, but we did have even more people last week, but I'm sure this is just great. Thank you for taking time and being with us. And like I tell the friends, you know, we're all in this together. I'm just here. We're all learning from one another. And this is what we have to do. I mean, this is our job. It really is. And for those of you who do take this time, I mean, you're respecting Baha'u'llah, you know, because this is what he wants us to do. So thank you. Okay, friends, we'll see you next week. Have your questions, reread chapter 1. We'll do questions when Jena comes back. The first 15 minutes, we'll leave it for questions, and then we'll read chapter 2 together. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Aloha. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Of course.
Thank you, Neda. June. Maybe you can, for the next time, you can give me more suggestions, more directives.
No, you were fabulous. I was just trying to stop the recording, but I'm going to edit this portion out. No, and hopefully I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Okay. No, that I'm thinking more about because it's my first experience with
No,
this
this is
mode of
great.
interaction.
No, this
I
is
think
great.
people who come should get it to the utmost, whatever was their expectation, and perhaps you can make some suggestions. And I'm
Absolutely.
open to suggestions all the
No,
time.
thank you. Thank you. And I'll see you. We'll talk about it. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.